G'day and welcome back to our Alfatron DSP video series. This is part 4, and in this video we will take a look at the matrix section of the DSP and how the routing setup works and some of the features you can control inside the matrix. Now, if you haven't done so already, please remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure you hit the notification bell so you can be notified of any upcoming videos that we post. And in addition to that, be sure to, if you have not already, to view parts 1 through 3 of our Alfatron DSP series. So you can see firstly in part 1 how the software overview or how the software works in the software overview, as well as part 2 how to connect to the DSP, and in part 3 we took a look at how the DSP modules can be edited and changed inside the channel strip. Now, as I mentioned, this is part 4, and we're going to take a look at the matrix routing. So in order to access the matrix, as we mentioned before, you can either click on the matrix block itself in the center here, or we can click on the matrix tab at the top there. But there we are. That's the matrix. Very self-explanatory. All our input channels are at the top, and our output channels are on the left-hand side. So this will be our input channels 1 through 8, as you can see there, as well as our auto mixer input, our USB interface inputs, echo cancellation, and ambient noise suppression. I will take a look at these in a little bit more detail in upcoming episodes, one by one. But essentially, basically, input 1 to output 1 is routed as the default, and so input 2 to output 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4, and so on. So that is the default way that the matrix is routed. But if we just click on these nodes, these cross points, and we can essentially unroute the DSP, and as it is, as you see it now, basically no signal will flow from the inputs to the outputs. So let's say, for argument's sake, we have 2 microphones connected, and we basically just want to route microphone 1 and microphone 2 to our output 1. Then essentially we would just be doing that, and that's basically then routing input 1 and input 2, which are these 2 inputs, to our output 1, which is this output. And basically then you will get signal flowing from input 1 and 2 to output 1. Now similarly, I can also route, or in additional route, more inputs, or more inputs to more outputs. So output 1, it does not dictate whether I can route the same input 1 or input 2 to output 2. I can essentially route the same signal to all my outputs, or I can create a very unique routing or mixing experience depending on what my system requires. So each output could, for instance, be a different zone. Each output could be a left PA system or a right PA system. I can have a third output, for instance, for subs. So you can really set up the matrix cross points however you need to for each individual installation or use case of the DSP. In addition to being able to route the cross points, you can also right-click the cross point and individually control the volume of that cross point. So although I might have input 1 routed to both output 1 and output 2, if I adjust my volume here for input 1, it means I'm going to adjust input 1 for output 1 and output 2 simultaneously by adjusting my input volume. If I would want to, for instance, just control the volume for output 1 from input 1, I can do that in the cross point. So I would leave my input volume where it is. I would also leave my output volume where it is, because if I adjust my output, I'm also adjusting input 2's volume that is going out to my output. So in this case, I want to only control input 1 volume to output 1. I right click my cross point, and here I can now individually control my input volume from input 1 to output 1. So I've reduced input 1 by 5.5 dBs going to output 1, but I've left all my other signals basically at 0 dB, so they are unaffected by my volumes. I can in this case Do the same with output 2. Can maybe even make that -12 or -13 there. So now input 2 is softer on output 2, just based on the volume change in the cross point. And as you can see, the cross point shows you where the volume has been set on that cross point. If it's blank like it is there, that means there's no volume adjustment taking place. So if I bring that back to 0, I can either adjust the volume, or I can highlight my selection box and type my value and press enter, and you'll see that now the value is blank again, which means that there's no cross point volume being implemented on that cross point. Now, as I mentioned earlier, just some other basic routing options here. I can also route into my auto mixer individual channels, but once I have routed those channels into my auto mixer, for instance, then I would need to route my auto mixer to my matrix. So let's say I have routed in my auto mixer. I've activated input 1 and input 2, and we'll come back in a later episode and discuss all the different settings and functions of the auto mixer. But if I've routed auto mixer 1 or microphones or inputs 1 and 2 to my auto mixer, in my matrix, if I were to route them here as input 1 and input 2, my auto mixer would be bypassed. So if I wanted to then have input 1 and 2 be controlled by my auto mixer, I would basically bring them in as the auto mixer cross point into input 1. So that's just some basic things to remember about the matrix section and some of the routing options on the unit. I would similarly, if I would want to use my echo cancellation, I can either in my echo cancellation route my inputs individually, or if I wanted to route my inputs from my auto mixer, I would route my auto mixer into my echo cancellation, right? And then in my matrix, I would route my echo cancellation. And lastly, same applies if I was to use my ambient noise suppression and my echo cancellation and my auto mixer. I would again route my echo cancellation to my ambient noise suppression. Right? So my auto mixer routes to my echo cancellation, which routes to my ambient noise suppression, and that would route to my outputs. Now I could also route that to my USB output if I wanted to, and then that can be used in conferencing in that configuration for the far side to receive the local audio inside the room. And similarly, if output 1 was my local speakers in my room, I would then route my USB input to my output 1 in order to get the far side audio from the USB connection from my DSP. Okay, that is in a nutshell just a very brief overview of the matrix section of the DSP. And as mentioned, please keep a lookout for our future videos. We'll see you soon.